Hi, I'm Rachel McCloud. I'm a licensed clinical social worker and emotional wellness coach and a mental health therapist. And today I want to talk to you about how to get out of survival mode. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. And I want to tell you a little bit of my background. I help people resolve symptoms of anxiety, depression, and traumatic stress using the brain's natural ability to resolve those issues. The brains are designed to resolve those issues. And so I help the brain do its work to create those results of resolving symptoms, but also creating wellness. Symptoms are part of how the brain creates. This is not a true statement. Let me try that again. It's Symptoms are evidence that the brain is trying to create health and wellness and is having challenges doing so. And so before I spill all the beans there, I'm going to talk about that in a second. But I want to talk about really how to do this. So the first thing is, let's talk about what is survival mode. How do you know you're in it? Many of you, I have a popular video on YouTube. My most popular video on YouTube is when you've lived your life in survival mode. And I'm getting a lot of different comments on there. One of them is saying people's therapists are now telling them, hey, this looks like you're in survival mode, or that you've been in survival mode, or people are realizing for the first time that they've been living their whole life in survival mode. This is a real thing. Um, we Survival mode is a fabulous thing that the brain creates, and it's used to survive. And when we need those survival states, they're important. Those of us who do not have, back in the day when we were running the jungles and the caves and all the things, that survival state really kept us alive from predators. And it's fast, it's not a thinking center, it is survive. It is your body gets up and runs, or shuts down or freezes like the deer, right? Oh my gosh, a predator is coming, don't move, right? um, Faint, just fall out, play dead here. And freeze, faint, fawn, please them, just do anything to please them, doesn't matter. Even though you're inside, it's like, I don't even like this. Outside, you're just catering and fawning, which keeps you alive in situations. And so you might be out there and throwing all your food for the winter out to the lions circling your den, right? I don't know what you're doing. um, but these or fighting, just instantly fighting. This right now, back in the day, that would look like fighting off lions and tigers and bears. But now what that looks like for us is fighting, instantly arguing, making fights, fighting people, having big outbursts of anger, things like that. Those are all survival states. And with them comes a lot of exhaustion. It comes, yeah, when we're functioning from that brain state, understand that when we're in survival mode, we're functioning from a very different brain state. It is not the same brain state as joy, pleasure, problem solving, creativity, insight, seeing things from multiple perspectives. It is a specific brain state. It's very primitive. Um, and it is what the brain is doing. The brain thinks this is what needs to run, and it's different than the other brain states. And so when we want to get out of survival mode, we actually want to shift brain states, right? And that is, brains are designed to do that as well. Brains are designed to start taking in information from outside of them to determine whether safety is present or not. And then if it's safe, all of the healing functions, the rest functions will begin. The processing, the digesting, the trying to figure out, how do I make that never happen again? Or what do I learn from this? All of those strategies will begin after we shift out of survival state. They're natural, they're native. Really, in my work in helping people resolve symptoms of anxiety, depression, and traumatic stress, which is also getting people out of survival mode, um, we're just getting we're just a lot of our work is just shifting brain states. It's like, if you do nothing else, you will resolve this issue. There's ways to do it faster, deeper, better, more thorough, more strategic. We'll talk about those when I get to that point here. But ultimately, that's what we're doing, because once we can shift, all the other brain functions begin. um, and it's fabulous. And you grow, you master things. It's growth, maturation, mastery, health are natural and native to the brain. And if it can do it, it will. right? And so some things here complicate this is that our brain is responding and shifting into survival state due to threats. And that means real threats, like real life threats. Somebody is, you're at, you're being chased by tigers. I think that's the least traumatic one at this point. I mean, we're hopefully we are a little bit farther removed from that. If you're watching this video and have a TV, I think we've progressed a device beyond being chased by tigers. Um, so whether it's real, like the tigers are coming, or it's perceived, right? It doesn't matter. The brain will do the same thing. It will act like we are being chased by tigers. So you're going to watch us faint, freeze, fawn, fight. I don't fight. You know, I got to do them in order, apparently. Fight, flight, flee. Okay, that's the one that I didn't say, or flee, right? Um, so um, that it doesn't matter if it's real or perceived. The brain state will be the same: fight, flight, freeze, faint, or fawn, right? And um, it really has a lot to do with pain neurons. Is there pain here? Has there been pain here before? Whether we've watched somebody else do it, right? We learned, oh, that's painful, don't do that. Or if we've had experiences, right? If we've seen somebody be caught by a tiger in the wild, we have our nervous system recorded that data, said that does not look fun. And so if I see tigers, we're out, right? Um, so they've made an association between tigers. The brain made that association between tigers and we're out, and that happens fast, right? And so you won't think about it. Your brain is like, how do you figure that out for us? Let's go. But this also has to do with social pain, relational pain, emotional pain. These three things will also send us there, and it will actually create a different brain state than thriving, problem solving, right? And so we have things that are happening socially that the brain is interpreting as a threat to our life. Because we are pack animals, we do need to belong to the pack. And so all of a sudden, we're being rejected. That's registered in the brain registered in the brain by the same part of our brain that registers being stabbed in the gut. So it wants to avoid that the same way. So we're like, why are you overreacting? Well, our brain doesn't, that part of the brain, the survival part of the brain doesn't differentiate, right? And so we need to actually shift states to get it to the part of the brain that can differentiate, that can make sense, that can review logic, that can understand this situation from a different perspective and can create new results. And those new results, once it gets it will load it back into the system, and that survival system interpretation will shift. And so you can run into the same thing, and the brain was like, it used to be dangerous, now it's not dangerous. And you will live like it's no longer dangerous because your brain did its thing to make your survival responses better and more accurate. And when we have things like our brain responding to perceived threats that are not really threats, that's not accurate. That's an indication that the brain has not been able to go through its healing process, its process for understanding what's actually going on, its process for being able to understand other perspectives, to be able to problem solve, be creative, thrive. That other parts of the brain know how to thrive. They know how to put together combinations of things to create great outcomes. But we got to get into that state. Right. So when we have a lot of inaccurate survival responses, then they start to show up more and more and more because we're actually not processing we're not doing whole brain states of processing, triggering information, stuff that our brain is interpreting as dangerous. It's actually going through the survival pathways instead of the rest and digest and process, growth, mastery process. And so we just need to shift. Okay, so I want to say one more thing here before I jump off. Um, if this is incorrect, perceived threats that are incorrect. When it's correct, your brain is on point, right? Though you need to be surviving in these moments. You're right, brain. Thank you very much. Survival mode. Thank you. When it's inaccurate, you're over here and you're like, this is not a big deal. And your brain is like, I don't care. I'm not logical. I'm not reasoning. There's pain here. We've got this coded as a threat. We're out into a survival state, right? So when that stuff actually gets, when we can shift the brain right there in that thing and send it through the healing, um, growth, correction process. I don't think I've used correction. Um, I don't know that I want to process, but it does correct these things and make things more accurate. We'll leave that in the air between us right now. But when we can do that, one of the other things that's going to happen here is the brain will start understanding the thing from a very big perspective, and it's like, oh, we've associated this with danger, and so it'll go in there and kind of break those associations. I'm sure this is how it looks in actual science with the neurons firing. It just goes in there. Somebody goes in there and breaks it, and then they go take it, and they're like, no, it goes over here. It belongs over here with safety, or it's more, it's better than danger and safety in there. There are real associations, right, that our brain is making that help us navigate our life better and better. And it will, when it finds an error, it will go in there and correct it, right? And it will put it to some place where it feels like it's better. Sometimes it's not right, but it usually is right in the fact that it's better. But after they live again, you live again in that same place. So it's like, oh, wait, this is better, but this wasn't quite accurate. Let's make that more accurate. And then you have that. And so this is really what we want to do with symptoms of anxiety, depression, and trauma disorders. Is we want the brain to figure out how to respond accurately. And what is accuracy? We want it to figure out what accuracy is. Otherwise, what it has is like survival state, survival state, survival state, because it would rather be alive than oh gosh, I was wrong, my bad. No, it doesn't care. It doesn't care. It's the rest of us that cares. But that part of the brain is fast. It's first. It goes first. It gets to decide what we're doing here. We want it to chill so that the information will go to the rest of the brain. But it has to pass that checkpoint. And that getting past that checkpoint is how we get out of survival mode. Okay, so that's the real deal here. Okay, so let's talk about the first step in this, how to get out of survival states. That the very first step is learn what works for your brain to shift out. Brains are designed to do this. There are things that work for you. There are tons of things that work for you. There are things that work for you to get you out of a survival state that you're actually doing right now because you would have had to develop them to function at some level. These things might be buried. They might be not very obvious to you. They might be not be very conscious to you. And they may not be super fabulous. They might be time intensive. They might be problems. This is some of the issues with anxiety, with alcoholism, drug use, sex addiction, cutting, right? All of these things are actually help shift us out to pain, work with pain and shift us into a state of more calm, which is more regulating. Sometimes these things even help to turn processing on. And you can see how awful it would be to rely on these things to actually accomplish healthy brain function. But the thing these things all have in common is that they work with the part of the brain that's deciding if it's pain or not, if we're safe or not safe. It's that limbic system. And so we actually want to work and target that part of the brain to get it to calm down. Now, let me talk about some great strategies that we're using here and not some of these harmful ones. And let me say another thing about this part of the brain. It needs, its native language is the body. It's interpreting all through your senses, including the tactile senses, your taste, smell, sounds. That's why we can hear something and go into a survival state. We can smell something and go into flashbacks. We're remembering things. We're going to a flashback. We can be touched in certain places where we had trauma and we're going back, right? Because it's the brain, that part of the brain is interpreting information coming from the body, the senses. So we want to use the body to send the message that we're safe. Right. And so many of us will have rituals around eating. Eating is another one that will bring calm. Right. Our brain can interpret, oh, we're doing that thing that we usually do when the tigers aren't here. So, OK, we can rest here. It's interpreting safety from these things. Alcoholism, drugs. Right. All these different addictions. There's components in there that are the brain can actually receive the message that we're safe. We can let the pathways open up. We can calm down. These are also, you can do things like crying. I'm going to talk about my favorite things to do, but I want to show you things that you're already doing to shift out of a survival state. And they're not super fabulous because they actually add more pain and they make the problem more and more complex. But we're doing them because they actually are supporting that part of the brain. We just want to do them better, a lot better. But you're not wrong for any of these things because you're actually trying to work with brain function. You're actually trying and we humans wouldn't do them if it didn't work. That's part of our brain. If it doesn't work, next. If you're doing something repetitively, it's working for you on some level. But so anything you would do with a baby impacts this system, helps this system calm down, right? If you're rocking, if you're finding yourself in a survival state and you're rocking back and forth, whatever, that you are working with, you are rocking that part of the brain. Sucking your thumb, that works. I'm not advocating that people do that, but if you are doing that, you have found a way to work this brain function manually, and it's probably keeping you alive, well, and probably moving you forward on some level. Okay. Hugs, this is great. Comfort, um, those are all fabulous. I find that once this stuff becomes so complex that we're staying in survival mode more, the amount of times we'd have to go get hugs would make that a barrier. The amount of nervous system regulation we would have to do, enough shifting brain states that we would have to do by crying is just too much. Um, and it's just too much. But if you can find the things that switch this brain state for you, you are winning. Doors open up for you. um, since this is what I do all the time with people, we're switching brain states. We're turning on processing. We're turning on manually operating this, and I'm not in a position to pick people up and rock them and cuddle, which would also work, right? So I need different strategies because that's not what I'm doing. I'm not here for that. I have my own babies to do that with. Um, what I have found is I like I have four, four different interventions that I rely on, and that my clients, that I trial these with my clients and see, does this shift brain state for them? And you can see specific signs in what people are saying, doing, feeling, even like, you can tell the coloring in their face if they're shifting out of a survival state. There's lots of signs you can pick up to see, okay, we're shifting. This intervention works. And so I trial four different interventions to see which ones will do that for them, and those are the ones that go in their bag of tricks, and those are the ones we use for their treatment. um, I have a free program where I teach people this. I offer people the same training program that I give my therapy clients and my coaching clients, and that's available on my website. I'm leaving links here for you to access that. It's called Interventions for Inner World Transformation. Um, and those interventions are, and I do these differently, because of the work I'm doing. People use these interventions for lots of different things: growth, wealth building, financial recovery, romance, couple work. And that can be really important to someone's recovery. But I really do them for differently. So even if you know these interventions, I would still encourage you to enroll in that free program and watch the trainings. They're short, they're like 15 minutes each. And I'm actually walking you through how to use them and using them with you in that moment. And so you can trial them out and see how that works for you. So the interventions I teach are emotional freedom techniques, thought field therapy, energy medicine, and EMDR. And in the free program, I do not add EMDR because EMDR has some pretty gnarly side effects if it's not the right fit for you. And so I include training in that in my program, Inner World Transformation, when people have more skills working with their inner world. And then if they want to add in EMDR, I teach them they'll use the same strategies they were using with the other interventions. And so they'll just swap interventions for EMDR instead of EFT, TFT, energy medicine, whatever. Okay. And so, but those are the ones I use because they work really quickly. If EFT is a good fit for you, your emotional freedom techniques, If that's a good fit, it's you'll notice shifts in 30 seconds. Because that we're working, that part of the brain is electrical, and so if we've got a good connection with it, if it's paying attention to us, which it is, it's paying attention to the body, and it's effective for shifting, we'll notice results in 30 seconds. Sometimes people's symptoms are so complex that they can't see the shifts that are taking place. And so if that's the case for you, if you're like, this isn't working for me, I would encourage you, before you decide it's not working for you, to work with a professional that can watch you and who knows what they're looking for, and can give you that feedback. Oh, this is working for you. I offer sessions like that. You can access that on my on my website, and actually sign up for one of these kinds of sessions where I will help fit interventions for you, and I'll assess. I actually assess quite a few things, but I assess if they're working. I also like to assess how your subconscious mind talks to you, how your connection with your body looks like, how you process sensory stuff, how you're picking up information. I assess all of that stuff, and then kind of help guide you through the first steps of the inner world transformation process that you can either do on your own or with your own therapist, or I have a program for that. Anyway, let's come back in here. Once you have an intervention that effectively shifts your brain out of survival states, um, into processing states, you're in. You can do anything you need to do. Now, if you have simple challenges like phobias, if you're phobic of the water, phobic of spiders, this will work super fast. And by super fast, I resolve those things in probably 1 to 2 sessions. It might take you a little bit longer, um, because you don't do this all the time, right? But it will resolve very, very fast. You keep shifting yourself out of a survival state. That's you're processing, because you want your brain is looking at something and it's like, it's dangerous. It's just instantly going to a survival state, and we want to keep flipping that to a processing state. And pretty soon, the brain corrects itself and really starts making new associations. Okay, this water is not dangerous. This water is dangerous under these circumstances, but it's safe in all these other ones. And then you start noticing that your body will actually act like that, and your feelings will act like it's dangerous here, but not in these situations. And so you'll start feeling more safety, comfort, and you'll probably start also noticing curiosity, interest. I used to have a huge spider phobia, and I found myself looking at a spider like, I wonder, I was trying to see if I could see a pattern on its back. Like, I was all curious. I was like, this is crazy. It's not crazy. It's healthy brain function. My brain has figured out. And not only that, it has enough safety with spiders now that it's curious. It's like, oh, how interesting. That's just what we will see. So if you've got simpler issues like that, um, that stuff resolves pretty quickly. If you have, the more complex it is, the more challenging it gets. When we're talking about deeply established symptom disorders of anxiety, depression, or traumatic stress, including PTSD and complex PTSD, we're talking about a lot of distress from the past that has not made it, that is triggering survival states regularly and often. And they're moving through our body, our sensory stuff, daily, hourly, often, so often that we are feeling like we're in a survival state all day long, every day. Sometimes people will have, like in certain anxiety disorders, they'll have times of the day where they're feeling anxious, and the other times they're feeling okay. But when we have disorders, we're talking about pretty broad. The survival state's running or could be activated anytime, which that means that you're still in a survival system state, because you're like, when's it going to happen next? Right? So we're not processing well, and we're not thriving. Our brain actually can't shift into thriving, so we start to shrink and get smaller. You might see signs of isolating because we're just not processing. We're not functioning well enough to be flowing freely through our life, right? And so those are signs of more complex anxiety, depression, or traumatic stress, and those ones require quite a bit of shifting the brain out of that brain state. And when I'm working with those clients, um, this is our job for a while. And depending on, I find that um, I this is my thing. I don't want to intimidate anybody or freak anybody out because every time the brain gets something through the healing process, instead of fight, instead of survival mode, life gets better, right? It's just better. It's better. The relief starts to feel in the body, more function increases. So after about 10 hours of this work, even with people with complex PTSD, they start feeling better. As a matter of fact, because people with complex PTSD have such a high pain tolerance, because so much pain is moving through their system that their brain has figured out how to be so good at like throwing it over in the corner, dissociating from it, blocking it out, those sorts of things, and running life like it's not there. Um, After about 10 hours, they're like, oh my gosh, this is great. And I'm like, keep working, back to work. There's more to do here. Um, but but so what I have found is it is to resolve these complex issues, it takes about 120 to 300 hours of specific and targeted brain work where we are shifting, 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 shifting. Now, that sounds awful and like a terrible amount of numbers. And if you do this in therapy sessions weekly with a therapist, it's going to take you 3 to 6 years. That's why I think it's so important for people to get these tools themselves and to get skilled at moving the shifting brain states. And we need to manually shift them. That is their design. They should have been manually shifted in childhood when there's lots of comforting. But when we have things like complex childhood trauma or complex PTSD, a lot of times this is occurring because of developmental trauma, trauma that occurred young, because parents of physical illness, mental illness, addiction issues, things like that. And there just wasn't enough manual operation of that child's nervous system from um, safety, unsafety, survival states to thriving states. And so there's a lot of backup in there. We need to get to work. We need to catch that system up, because every time if that child had been, their nervous system had been manually operated, it would have created growth and health and wellness. And we're going to do it now. And we're going to make sure it happens now. And so we're going to we're going to wire all of that developmental stuff that should have been there. We're going to do it now. And the brain can do it now. It's ready to do it now. It's trying to do it now. That's why there's dissociation. That's why these symptoms are here. We're trying to survive, but we really are trying to heal. That's why flashbacks are happening, racing thoughts, looping thoughts, trying to figure things out, over intellectualizing, things like that are here because the brain is trying to heal. And so we're just going to help it out. It needs this one piece manually operated. So I have people do this for up to 2 hours every day. Now, this might be in little pieces, right? It might be in like a minute here, 30 seconds, 20 seconds, a minute, an hour, 5 minutes here, 20 minutes there, 30 minutes before bed, whatever they want to do, whatever fits for them. I want it to fit in their life. I don't want them to do different things, because I want them to heal where they are in their actual life, in the place where they need it the most, not in my office. In my office, that should be a good, fun, cozy place. Fabulous, but you got to go live out there. And so that's where we want your system processing and making and reinterpreting and finding safety and creating safety. We want to shift it out of a survival state because it's actually safe out there too. Right? It's safe in these moments. It's safe in your shower. It's safe in your bed. It should be. If it's not safe anywhere in these places, that's a whole different thing. And I want you to honor that. Physical safety is so important. So in these, and you should see survival states in those places. That is actual accurate brain function. If you are in a relationship with somebody who is domestically violent, I'm not taking your survival system away. It is running accurately. And so that's not a disorder. That right there, that little piece is not a disorder. That is accurate brain function, and you need to survive. We want you to. So, but in all these places where there is safety, you're like, oh my gosh, like on the outside, it looks like my life is great. And I'm like in a survival state over here. That's really where we want these shifts to take place. The other, like in an active domestic violent relationship, for example, that's active trauma. That is not post-traumatic stress. And that should be in a traumatic experience, your survival system should be going. But if your survival system is still running from childhood trauma 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 70 years ago, and it's still impacting you now, that's the stuff we need to resolve. That's the stuff that's not accurate anymore. It was accurate then, and it actually can't get through the process where your brain would understand timelines. That part of the brain survival system does not understand timelines. It doesn't. It thinks it's happening now. It thinks all the things are happening now. And so we need it to go through its process of understanding it's not happening now, right? And then it'll be like, oh, it's not happening. It'll tell you it's not happening now. And that's really what you want. You don't want to try to tell this brain it's not happening now. It's not happening now, right? Because it doesn't care. It's not a logic or reasoning center. So you want it to go through its process of understanding that it's not happening now, and your brain has that process. It just needs to be manually supported right now. So what if you've got more of these complex issues? There's a lot of work to do, and it can be beautiful. It can be fun. I was telling a new client yesterday, I was like, this can be fun. This does not have to be awful. This does not have to be full of pain. We just have to process this. We don't have to fall into the pit of despair. We got to process. And so what I would recommend, because there's a lot of work and we want you to be thorough, we want you to meet your survival needs and do this brain work so your brain can accurately interpret safety or danger or threat in your life. I really recommend following a strategic and thorough process. And so a lot of times we're working with therapists that are so good with support. They're so good with past memories. They're so good with processing the past memories. They're so good with helping understand different things. But we really need we need all the layers of brain work going. And we can do them all. We can layer them in pretty much at the same time. And so we can move through states pretty quickly if we're organized and we're strategic. And so I would encourage you to do that and really work to just create wellness throughout your whole life, so that you can thrive. I mean, that's we want you thriving. We want you thriving in relationships. I've had clients tell me, I don't think I'm wired for relationships. I'm like, yeah, no, for healthy relationships, you're not. Your early programming says, no, that's not how it works. It will not be good. Let's get that. We got to build it now. We can build it now, and we do. We build in safety now, in intimacy and connection now. Our system comes ready to wire that in. It actually, oh, I'm nerding and I'm done. That's for another episode. We're going to just do that again. We're going to nerd out on why your brain is ready to build all the health and wellness you need in your life, specific to you, whenever, at any time, and why you can do it now, the stuff that was not done in early childhood. So what I want to let you know about as we wrap up is I want to invite you to look through and perhaps even enroll in my program, Inner World Transformation. This is a step-by-step strategic guide. It's a four-phase program that guides you to resolving symptoms, learning how to manually operate your survival system, and then take that ability through each area of your life and help your brain resolve symptoms of anxiety very, very deeply, and also build in health and wellness. So it's a very strategic guide. It's open-ended enough to fit anyone's symptoms in it, and it's structured enough that you know what you're doing. You know when to start, what to finish, what finishing looks like in each of the specific things, and it's very guided. This is a great thing to do if you're working with a therapist who doesn't do the work that I do, but they're wonderful and supportive, but they don't do this neurological rewiring stuff. This is also good if you have been working on your mental health and wellness for years and you're like, I still have spots of stuff. It's great to now go through and be very strategic and specific. There's another S word in here besides strategic. Anyway, and just go through and help your brain create more and deeper levels of health and wellness and more connected inner world synergy. And so that's on my website. It's called Inner World Transformation. And I do want to, and you will know if this is a really good fit for you. Also, if you try If you do the free program, interventions for inner world transformation, and those interventions work for you, if you're like, whoa, this feels better. I can see things more clearly. If those interventions are good for you, then you can walk this path that I've created for you to heal, to take that tool and heal. So I invite you to look those things over. Um, I hope this helps you just look at your life differently and notice the efforts you're already making to get out of survival mode, and then to just continue to support yourself through that. So I loved our time together. I will talk to you later. Take care.